Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Good Tuesday as we're covering all the good news that's happening out there in the world. And boy, do we have a lot of good news. That's right. It's not always bad stuff going on out there. There's also some positive things, some medical discoveries, some archaeological discoveries, some animals doing great things, and some people doing great things here on Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look at our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we've started and we haven't had any caffeine in our bodies. So let's drowsily read these stories as we tell you about all the good stuff in today's headlines. Today on Before Coffee, dogs in the UK are first to be trained to sniff out bowel cancer after nailing Parkinson's and COVID. New breast cancer drug kills mouse tumors in a single dose.
Happy Good Tuesdays. It's Roger in the United States. With Assad gone, Syria's revolution feels like a miracle again.
Archaeologists make a once-in-a-century discovery in Pompeii. Officer crowdfunds $40K for a pizza driver who only got $2 tip on a snowstorm delivery.
And more good news. Deforestation in the Amazon has been halved in the last few years, and a paralyzed man flies a drone using his mind.
And in culture news, let's talk about scans for the memories, why old game magazines are a vital source of cultural history and nostalgia.
It's National Plan for Vacation Day. What better time to plan for vacation when you're freezing your ass off on January 28th, 2025 on Before Coffee.
Blueberry pancakes. I always liked blueberries, but chocolate pancakes were always also good pancakes, but if you cooked the pancakes too long, the chocolate would start burning. So those were a little more difficult to cook. Whereas blueberries, they just caramelize in the pancakes. They get all gooey.
Right.
But, hey, I haven't had a pancake in a long time.
That's why you don't cook chocolate with a lot of sugar.
Yeah. You have to do that
hot.
cooker's chocolate.
That's semi-sweet chocolate.
Dark chocolate. I love dark chocolate. Maybe that's why I like dark chocolate, because of all those chocolate pancakes when I was growing up. You know who also loves pancakes, probably? Dogs. Dogs love eating human food, and they also love saving humans. Now in the UK, dogs are being taught to sniff out bowel cancer, after nailing the ability to sniff out Parkinson's and COVID. These clever dogs are the first in the UK to be trained to sniff out bowel cancer. This is on Good News Network. The Medical Detection Dogs charity began a groundbreaking study in 2024 to teach 7 pooches how to detect tumors simply by smelling urine in pots. Following the first part of the training, the Cocker Spaniels, Labradors, and Retrievers are showing real signs of success. SWNS News reported the results had proven to researchers that they can sniff out bowel cancer in urine. But in a few months, they will face a new stage of double-blind tests before the results are confirmed 100%. The charity hopes dogs will deliver an accurate and more sensitive early-stage bowel cancer detection method quicker than humans, which could improve healthier outcomes and help save lives. All the bowel cancer dogs and the other pups at the Medical Detection Dogs are trained to sniff out Parkinson's disease, Pseudomonas, COVID-19, Addison's disease, and heart conditions like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS. The charity has been investigating the odor of diseases for 15 years, says Gemma Butlin, head of the communications of the charity in Milton Keynes, 50 miles north of West London. The bowel cancer study is new to us, but detection is not. The training program involves early set training, learning the game in which they had to detect the disease in a sample pot of urine. The sample sizes got smaller, and the dogs eventually needed to learn to sniff the disease out in samples from patients with other conditions. Sample pots from the Hull University teaching hospitals are placed in interactive metal stands designed by the Open University, which feed through a computer. Every sniff is logged, and the dogs tell human with a signal like standing still if they detect cancer. When they sniff the odor, they give us a signal such as sitting or standing to indicate the smell. If they identify a positive sample, which takes less than 10 seconds, they'll get a lot of treats, cuddles, and affection. Gemma said that each pup also spends time bonding with the trainer, having lots of fun in the process. The first and most important thing is that we need to prove that they can smell cancer from the samples. At the moment, we've got them smelling 1 milliliter of urine per pot, which, as you can imagine, is a minimal amount. Many of the samples will also have other diseases the dog will need to sniff through. The same method is already being used to detect prostate cancer and bladder cancer from these urine samples. The dogs joined the charity when they're 8 weeks old and came from breeders or research rescue organizations. Now the champs are having their own pups. We've just welcomed our second ever litter of puppies from our dogs, and we're hoping to source some more of them ourselves. So not only are they creating dogs that can sniff out illnesses, they're breeding dogs to sniff out those illnesses, probably with the idea that I guess there's this idea that if they train them to do something, somehow that's hard-coded in their DNA. Or maybe they're just good at they're good sniffing dogs. It's also a possibility. It's very interesting.
Their special noses.
Yeah.
Genetic.
But it's very interesting to be able to sniff out diseases in 10 seconds. So that's really
your
cool.
Dog knows when you're sick too. Absolutely. You ever have a dog lick your wounds? It's weird. Like they want to do that.
It's always they're so empathetic. Yeah.
Right.
In more disease-busting news, I guess. This is by Francesca Benson and Holly Large on IFL Science. New breast cancer drug kills tumors in mice. The typical treatment for estrogen receptor positive ER breast cancer involves surgery and years of hormone therapy that can come with an array of unpleasant side effects. However, a new drug candidate could hold the potential to climinate the need for such a grueling process. After study in mice found that it wiped a range of breast tumors in a single dose. Wow. Yeah. Eliminate. Sorry, I can't read. I need to zoom in. Now I can't see. I have to zoom in. Breast cancer is the most common types of cancer. And though more people than ever are surviving it, that doesn't mean the treatments are perfect. For people diagnosed with ER plus breast cancer, meaning the tumor has receptors for the hormone estrogen, which triggers the cells to grow, the usual course of hormone therapy can have an impact on the entire body. Side effects can include pain, sexual dysfunction, and fatigue, while treatment also associated with a increased risk of bones becoming weak, brittle, or developing endometrial cancer. So you try to cure one cancer and then you get another one. Even if a person is able to tolerate all of that, there's still a reasonable high chance of the cancer coming back within 5 years. So what's the solution? Researchers have long been attempting to find an answer in the form of a more precise and effective treatment that targets cancer cells with minimal side effects. Part of that effort includes Dr. Paul Hergenrother and colleagues, who've been working on a small molecule drug called ERSO. ERSO works by causing tumor cells to swell and die via a process called necrosis, which you don't want that to happen to you normally. Previous research in mice have found it to be pretty effective at this, but it still had some unwanted side effects in its initial form. Hergenrother and colleagues have now developed a derivative of the molecule, ERSO-TFPY, that appears to eliminate the problem while remaining effective. In 3 different mouse models of ER plus breast cancers, the researchers found that a single dose of ERSO-TFPY was enough to either nearly or completely eradicate tumors across a whole range of sizes. It was also found to have minimal side effects, something that was demonstrated in rats and dogs in addition to mice. It's undeniably an exciting prospect, and a single dose of a super effective treatment can minimize the chance of side effects and prevent breast cancer patients from having to endure years of therapy. An anti-cancer regimen that consists of a single dose or a handful of doses could change the face of breast cancer treatment, the study authors write. However, it's important to note here that those results aren't guaranteed to translate to humans, even though the team also found that the drug was able to effectively kill cultured human breast cancer cell lines. A model animal or cell in a dish isn't the same thing as a fully fledged human being with all of its complex physiology and biochemistry that entails. As such, there's a long road of further research before ERSOTFPY can make it from the lab to the clinic, which the study authors acknowledge. Nevertheless, they remain hopeful. It is very rare for a compound to shrink tumors in mouse models of breast cancer, let alone completely eradicate those tumors with a single dose. So we are eager for ERSOTFPY to advance the treatment for breast cancer, Hergenrother said in a statement. The study, if you would like to read it, has been published in the Journal of ASC Central Science, in which they talk about all the juicy details of what they did in their trials, discover how to eradicate breast tumors completely without too much chemical therapy. But there's my news in the science world of finding diseases and squashing them like a bug. Onto your story.
All right. Good news on the cancer front all around. We'll defeat cancer one of these days when there's profit to be made.
That's for sure.
And and this is our good news story from as Good Tuesday rolls on. This is from foreignpolicy.com. Oz Katerji. With Assad gone, Syria's revolution feels like a miracle again. I spent 13 years of my life closely monitoring the M5 highway, a long Syrian motorway that travels north to south, linking the country's second city, Aleppo, with Homs, and Damascus, before continuing down toward the Jordanian border. Territorial control over the stretch of road was one of the best ways to mark the winners and losers in a long, brutal civil war. Syrian rebels spent years trying to regain control of the road after losing it to the regime during the Russia's and Iran's assault on Aleppo in 2016. While territory frequently changed hands, gains and losses were often measured in meters and mostly went in favor of the regime. I studied this road for over a decade, examining maps, satellite imagery, and war footage. I knew this road better than I knew the road I grew up on. This is why it felt like a fantasy to suddenly be driving down it myself on Wednesday this past December, heading from northern Syria directly to Damascus. The only danger was traffic. The thousands of internally displaced Syrian families alongside refugees who had been living in Turkey, returning to rebuild their homes, some for the first time in over a decade. Thousands of Syrians died fighting for this road. Tens of thousands of Syrian civilians were murdered and forcibly displaced along this road. Hundreds of thousands of Syrians fled along this road to seek a refuge in Europe. If Syria was a human body, the M5 would have been its aorta, and the blood that has been spilled in the pursuit of its liberation is no metaphor. Okay, we're going to for a picture. The only sign of dictatorship left in this route was the total destruction of civilian infrastructure. Mosques, hospitals, and apartment buildings. It is often too hard to tell what this rubble was before the war, strewn amidst the abandoned armor of a defeated army. I counted more than 30 armored, abandoned, and destroyed vehicles on the M5 highway, including a self-propelled howitzer with a full payload of shells abandoned just outside Marat al-Numan. Many of the crews had clearly deserted without firing a shot. The liberating army that drove the regime forces out of Aleppo had no tanks. They had no armor, no self-propelled howitzers, and no close air support. They had Toyota trucks and motorbikes, Kalashnikovs, and old Soviet rocket-propelled grenade launchers. On paper, it should have been impossible to drive an army equipped with heavy armor out of some of the most heavily fortified positions ever built in the Syrian civil war, or in the case of Aleppo Citadel in human history. But that is exactly what happened. Bashar al-Assad's army was hollowed out by corruption, but it still took a remarkable heroism for a few thousand rebels with nothing more than small arms to rout an entrenched armored force. It takes resolute will to charge a Toyota at a tank. After 13 years of unspeakable violence, much of it directed against civilians, Syrian rebels were willing to risk it all for a shot at freedom. The M5 highway seems like a dream. But as the road finally gave way to Damascus, the reality of the new Syria dawned on me. dawned on me. The imposing mosaic sculpture of Hafez al-Assad's face, Bashar's equally dictatorial father, finally appeared in the distance, but the image of a man responsible for the 1982 destruction of Hama was covered over by a freshly painted Syrian revolutionary flag with one word in English in giant letters, "Free." It was the moment that I broke down in tears for the first time in Syria and fell to my knees in prayer. Overwhelmed by returning to a city I thought I would never see again in my lifetime, along a road I could not have imagined driving freely. As I wept, I looked around me and saw Syrians arriving at that mural, tears streaming down their cheeks. A mosaic wall shows that, okay, there's a picture of it here. Pretty cool. "This is the first time I have returned to my city in 11 years, said the man beside me as he wiped his face. He raised his son, perhaps 7 years old, above his shoulders to take a photo. Pain, grief, and joy together were etched on the father's face. I would come to know that look well in the next few days. Unlike Aleppo and Homs, most of Damascus had remained under total regime control throughout the Syrian civil war. For most of the inhabitants, it was their first taste of freedom. As the hastily assembled crew of journalists I was with drove through the city, bursting with life and hope, an entire infrastructure of repression had vanished. It had been less than 72 hours since the regime fell as we entered Damascus, but already Assad's poster had been torn down. There were no checkpoints in the streets, and all the military positions across the city had been abandoned.
Amazing.
Red regime flags had already been replaced by the green 3-star flag of the Syrian Revolution, procured from who knows where, given just 3 days beforehand. Being caught with one could be a death sentence. The mass graves Assad filled with the bodies of hundreds of thousands of victims are still being processed. It will take years to finally uncover the true scale of Assad's crimes and the complicity of powers such as Iran and Russia in them. The following day, the Sednaya prison camp, I saw Syrians, ignoring the overwhelming stench of death, to frantically search for news of their loved ones, examining thousands of prison documents scattered across the floor. As I stood over the side of one of the regime's mass graves in Adra, in northern suburbs of Damascus, a local man jumped down into the pit and pulled bags of bones out from underneath him. "It is full in every direction," he said, as he pulled out a bag containing the body of a woman murdered in a regime prison. Her name and prison number written in green marker pen on the face of a white plastic bag that contained her remains. "Who can treat human beings like this?" he said, as he broke down and wept, barely finding the strength to pull himself out of the grave. The juxtaposition of that moment with the image of throngs of Syrians celebrating on the streets of Damascus after Friday prayers will live with me for the rest of my life. As a crowd made its way to the Amiyad Square, it was full of ecstasy and jubilation. At one point, a teenage girl made her way over to me, noting my press vest. "This is the first time I speak English in the open," she said, as she spoke for hope of Syria's future and her vision of Syria united as one people, brought together by love for their community. Syrians have already proved they can do the impossible. Why should they fear rebuilding Syria as a democratic, pluralist nation-state, despite the repeated doubts of Western pundits? There's still much in doubt about the future of Syria. Its new Islamist leaders are the victors of a brutal struggle between warlords that share a portion of the blame for the horrors of Syria over those long and bloody 13 years of civil war. They now find themselves governing over a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society exhausted by more than a decade of bloodshed, a society that has already proved in blood that is not willing to accept anything less than freedom. This was not liberation Syria's revolutionaries had in mind in 2011 when they took to the streets with chants of unity and defiance, but is the liberation that Syria's supposed allies had already written off as impossible. Inheriting a broken nation, Syria's new interim leaders have tried to strike a balancing act between diplomacy abroad and appeasing Syria's fragmented factions and more hardline militant groups. How successful that will ultimately be now depends on how serious their commitment is to the genuine democratic transition for Syria. Syria's journey to the liberty and democratic ideals that prompted the Syrian revolution to begin all those years ago will be long and hard and may not take the direct path that Syrians are hoping for. But the streets of Damascus in those dizzying few days after the downfall of the regime, it was not fear that I witnessed, but hope. There's a story on Syria and
amazing.
their fledgling democracy, we hope.
Though to be fair, Assad also had elections. For some reason, I don't know why.
Assad won every time by 90%.
Yeah,
just like Russia has elections.
And Lukashenko, just won by 92%. But yeah, that's crazy.
Because he's so popular.
I was looking up some stats here on Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt. But originally the first kind of when this civil war began, the official date, was the 15th of March 2011. I was still in high school when this kicked off. I remember actually, it was like the first time there was at least the first time I remember there being Facebook kind of politicizing, where people were actually like helping each other through Facebook to fight
Facebook
and organize.
Live.
And organizing and stuff. Like, oh, this is how you can cover yourself with gas masks, blah, blah. Donate here if you'd like to help the insurgency, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And according to Wikipedia, at least 500K to 600K military deaths occurred, with 200K to 300K civilian deaths. And 6 million people were displaced internally, plus the 6 million externally displaced, which is why we had the refugee crisis back in 2016 and all that, because they had been getting refugees from Syria for a very, very long time, since 2011, and they were starting to, Europe at least, starting to burst at the seams.
Don't forget Russia losing interest in trying to support Syria because they had their own war to fight.
Yeah, exactly. When they invaded Crimea.
Mm-hmm.
So all that stuff feels like ancient history, really, but it's not. It's still happening, and it's really great to see like a first place encounter.
Fledgling.
No. Like what you just read was somebody's actual first encounter.
Person.
First person, that's the word. I can't think of why couldn't I think of the word person. First person encounter with this return to the center of it all. And people speaking English for the first time. Very heartwarming that it's sad that it took so long, but it's also happy that it happened at the same time. 13 years. Okay.
There is no happiness without sadness.
Yeah, you can't really realize what you have until you lose it. That's what they say.
Right.
And some Americans might discover that.
All the time? You don't even know what you're happy about.
Unfortunately. Speaking of people who lost everything.
You're happy over misery.
Speaking of people who lost everything in a day, let's talk about Pompeii. Yeah, I know. Some more cheery news about finding some dead people's long-lost civilization. And today probably more recently, they have discovered a once-in-a-century discovery. It's an extraordinary find in Pompeii of a bathhouse. This is by... I'm not sure who it's by, but it's on The Archaeologist. In an extraordinary find, archaeologists in Pompeii have uncovered what has been called a once-in-a-lifetime or in a century discovery, an opulent bathhouse that has been hidden beneath layers of rock and ash for over 2,000 years. So it's never too late, even 2,000 years later. The discovery, shared exclusively with BBC News, reveals one of the largest bathhouses ever found in ancient Roman city, located within a grand residential estate first uncovered 2 years ago. The bathhouse is a stunning example of luxury, featuring exquisite artwork and large plunge pool, along with rooms for hot and warm and cold baths. The lavish setup is reserved for the wealthiest individuals, as only a few elite homes in Pompeii have private bath complexes. Gabriel Zuchetregel, the director of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii, described the find as probably the biggest bath complex in Pompeian private home, emphasizing the immense scale of the discovery. He added that these well-preserved spaces offer a unique glimpse into the everyday life of Pompeii, almost as if the people had just left to go. The bathhouses are believed to have belonged to Aulus Rustius Verus, a prominent Pompeii politician. Verus is also thought to have operated a bakery and a laundry on the same street, further indicating his high status. This luxurious bathhouse adds the evidence of Varus's position in Pompeii society. Archaeologists are continuing to excavate the state, hoping to uncover more artifacts that shed light on the city's history. In August, the team discovered the remains of two individuals who tragically perished when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. One was an older woman, aged between 35 and 50, and the other a young man, likely in his teens or early 20s. The woman was found clutching valuable jewelry and coins, suggesting she had taken refuge in a small room within the house to escape the eruption's devastation. Ludovicia Alessa, a conservator at Pompeii, described the site as dramatic, explaining that every discovery made there reveals more about the heartbreaking events that unfolded during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. As excavation continues, the team hopes to uncover even more about the people and life in Pompeii before its destruction. The discovery of this bathhouse is just one of many steps in piecing together the daily experiences of city residents and the sudden catastrophe that ended their lives. Of course, it's not just about that, it's just about the idea that this is a place that's untouched, right? That was what was so big about discovering Pompeii to begin with. Because if anybody you know, right, even you alive right now can know this, that things change around you all the time. Infrastructure, buildings, all kind of stuff. Go around your town and try to find the oldest building. And it's probably not that old because what happens? This building's old. Let's tear it down and rebuild it. And that's what happened in Italy for centuries, right? For 2,000 years. This building's old. Let's rebuild it. This is a better building. Oh, let's use wood. Let's use cement. Let's use whatever, you know? And they did that for 2,000 years.
The only thing really built well was usually temples and churches.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are things that survive.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the point is, right? A lot of these things were temporary installations that would be replaced, taken down, maybe even completely just destroyed and replaced with a completely new thing. So for 2,000 years, Italy was not having these ancient Pompeii buildings. So this is the only place we can really find something exactly as they were, except for maybe some ash, lava and magma and whatever. Almost completely untouched. And of course, it helps that the lava encased them in a way so that they're kind of like reverse fossils of these things existing. So very cool and very interesting to learn about human life 2,000 years ago. For human life today, let's look at this pizza driver who only got a $2 tip and a Snowstorm delivery, so they crowdfunded $40K for him. So he could, I guess, retire for the year. I don't think you can make 40K as a pizza driver. That does not sound like a normal...
You got to pay taxes on those too.
Yeah.
Definitely got to pay tax on that stuff. You can't just keep it and go, hey, it's free money.
Well, you put it in a trust and then they send it to you in small amounts.
Right.
And then you don't have to pay tax on it as much.
Or you can put it, or you can invest it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Put it in a 401k.
This is from our
IRA.
This is from our good friend Andy Corbley. When a pizza delivery driver walked away from a door at an affluent house with nothing but a $2 tip, he didn't realize it would change his life. A $2 doesn't sound like much, and it isn't, but it earned attention of a local police officer who was astounded and distraught with the lack of generosity shown to the driver and set a GoFundMe to try and help him out. A blizzard was belting Brownsburg, Indiana, and out in the middle of it was Connor Stropenhoff, trying to keep the mail-like delivery standard of local pie maker Rockstar Pizza. In nothing but some sweets and a pair of Nikes, Steppenhoff walked half a mile when the road to the address was closed. He got the $40 order to his buyer and got a $2.15 as a reward. Nearby was police officer Richard Craig, who had stopped by a crash. Seeing Steppenhoff walking through the dirty sidewalk, Craig whipped out his phone, and started recording an impromptu interview with his popular TikTok account. After hearing how far he had walked and the extent of the tip, Craig lost it. "Look at this man! This man walked through hell and high water to deliver a pizza," Officer Richard Craig said. Shortly after that, Officer Craig posted another video of himself in the snow explaining how he ran back to his car to give Steppenhoff all the cash he had in his wallet. "Look at these homes. They absolutely had the means to tip this young man. Absolutely insane. Do better, folks," he said, announcing in the video description that he set up a GoFundMe to try and get Steppenhoff a $500 reward. An anonymous donor dished out $1,500. while almost 2,000 people raised $39,000 at the time of publishing, all to show a delivery driver they appreciated him. I still don't believe it's real, but it is, Stephen Hoff told WRTV Indianapolis. The owner of the Rockstar Pizza, Ron Matthews, says Stephen Hoff is well deserving of the attention. He wasn't here in the restaurant. He had no idea people were watching him. He got out, walked to the house, and came back without any expectations, Matthews said. He was just doing his job, and some dude who was warm and cozy in his house, who ordered pizza in a snowstorm, was like, yeah, here's $2, dude. Go buy nothing. Because as we all know, you can't buy anything with $2 these days. Nothing. What is this?
Freeze to death for $2.
Oh, he has a salary. He just walked through the snow for this pizza, dude. Give him $50. God damn. Anyways, but there's your 2 stories on archaeological discovery and freaking dishing out $40K for somebody so they can, I guess retire. Like, I'm not working for a year. Goodbye, guys.
You can't retire on 40. You can't retire on 40K. Sorry.
I'm saying he can take a break.
You can probably live homeless for $40K.
No, I'm saying he can. Years. I'm saying he can I don't know, take a break from work. Maybe
pay off some
be
bills.
Walking through some snowstorm.
Get out of debt.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Get out of debt.
Don't know his life story. Wow. Didn't tell me his life story, so I don't know what he could use it for. Very cool, very nice, and that's my positive news.
All right, more good news on Good News Tuesday. As we're going to talk about the Amazon, not the Amazon the company, not Jeff Bezos. We're going to talk about the rainforest down in South America. This is from sustainabilitybynumbers.com. Deforestation in the Amazon has halved in the last few years, says Hannah Ritchie of this website. In my book, her book, she included a chart of deforestation rates in Brazilian Amazon since the 1980s, and she also wrote about it in her Substack. Deforestation rates had doubled under Jair Bolsonaro, remember him, the guy that refused to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And things were looking bleak, but at the time of writing, Lula da Silva had just been reelected, and I said this should give us some hope for a turnaround. This has happened. The latest satellite data from Brazil's space agency, INPE, has confirmed the second consecutive year of declining deforestation in the Brazilian Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you look at the chart, which you can't see, you see that the rates fell in 2023 and have fallen another third in 2024. That means the rates have roughly halved since 2022. This is not the first time that Lula has gotten serious about deforestation. Rates fell by 75% during his first 2 terms in the first decade of the 2000s. And the chart, there's a lot of charts you can't see. If you will look at the chart, if you see the sitting president listed for every year, in blue you can see the internal drop of deforestation under Lula, in red you can see the rise under Bolsonaro. You can see this. Of course,
that doesn't mean causation. It's just an interesting correlation. I don't think they are they arguing that it causes it?
It's definitely true.
Okay.
Oh, it's definitely true. It's totally because, well, what did Bolsonaro do, right? He deforested. When Trump had the he raised tariffs on China. China decided we're not going to buy any more American wheat. Fuck you. And Trump had to bail out the farmers. I don't know if you remember that, but another thing that happened because Trump's tariffs, besides having the U.S. government bail out the United States farmers, was that China went to Brazil for their wheat. And guess what Bolsonaro did? He cleared rainforest so they could plant wheat. So,
more money! Woohoo! Who needs trees when you can make more money off of wheat?
Yep. The Amazon is still losing forest. Deforestation rates are positive, not zero. And that this is at a time when compounding pressures of climate change and in the last 3 years, El Nino have made these ecosystems increasingly unstable. But to expect that Lula da Silva and his environmental minister Marina Silva would get deforestation to zero overnight would have been naive. They are making significant progress. Ending deforestation by 2030, which they pledged to do, will not be an easy task, but they will probably be my top picks to get it done. So yeah, there is not just correlation, there is causation here.
Mm-hmm.
One lesson from the long-term data is that leadership and governments on the issue are crucial. It's worth keeping in mind that Lula's current term ends in 2026 and still open question to whether he will run for re-election. That means the final 4 years of 2030 target could be very well under a different leader, regardless of whether a left-leaning candidate is elected. While the current trend is positive, there is no room for complacency. The mid-2020s could easily be a repeat of the mid-2010s when record lows were followed by a decade of climbing deforestation rates. But as we see out, this is from last month, so we should take some hope from the last few years of progress and be determined to carry it into 2025. Okay, there's your good news on deforestation. Here's the good news on a personal level. A paralyzed man flies virtual drone using only his mind. A revolutionary brain computer. This is from dailygalaxy.com. A revolutionary brain computer interface, BCI, has allowed a 69-year-old man with paralysis to control a virtual drone using his thoughts. This groundbreaking achievement marks a significant milestone in assistive technology and offers new hope for individuals with mobility impairments. The participant, paralyzed on all four limbs due to a spinal cord injury, successfully navigated a virtual drone through an obstacle course by imagining specific finger movements. This was made possible through electrodes implanted in his motor cortex, the part of the brain responsible for movement. By visualizing movements such as flexing his thumb or pairing fingers, the participant generated neural signals that the BCI decoded in real time. The innovative device exemplifies the potential of connecting brain activity with external controls to empower individuals with limited mobility. Researchers aim to use similar systems to help people perform everyday tasks, from typing on a keyboard to controlling robotic limbs. The journey to mastering this technology requires rigorous training. Initially, the participant practiced syncing his imagined movements with a virtual hand displayed on a screen. He achieved an accuracy rate of hitting up to 76 targets per minute, a testament to the system's precision and adaptability. Once proficient, his brain signals were linked to the drone's navigation system. The participant demonstrated impressive control, guiding the drone through a virtual basketball court with pinpoint accuracy. Matthew Wilsley, a neurosurgeon at the University of Michigan and co-author of the study, likened the process to playing a musical instrument. This success builds on decades of research in brain computer interfaces. The participants' electrodes were implanted in 2016 during a previous study, and the team had been refining the technology ever since. Algorithms now allow the BCI to interpret subtle neural patterns, translating them into actionable commands with remarkable speed. The study highlights the versatility of BCIs for tasks requiring precise and simultaneous movements. Researchers envision future applications where individuals with paralysis could control multiple functions at once, such as typing and interacting with smart devices. The bigger picture, brain-computer interfaces are not limited to medical applications. Industries such as gaming, robotics, or even space exploration are exploring their potential. However, for individuals with mobility challenges, BCIs represent a life-changing opportunity to regain autonomy. Despite their achievements, challenges remain. Implanting electrodes involves invasive surgery, and the systems require extensive training. Moreover, translating these breakthroughs into widely available therapies will necessitate significant investment and regulatory approval. So there's good news on the paralysis front. And hopefully you got my video, and I'm done working for today.
Now you still have to read this day in history.
Back to you.
Which I guess isn't that hard.
Well, that's not really work. It's more like leisure.
All right. Well, let's go to our culture segment, which has some positive stuff going in it, because we're going to talk about archiving video game magazines and how that's vital for cultural history. And of course, that good old nostalgia feeling you get when you read it and you go, oh, I remember when I was 12 and reading about the new Legend of Zelda game coming out. This is from Keith Stewart on The Guardian. Before the internet, if you were an avid gamer, then you were very likely to be an avid reader of games magazines. From the early 1980s, the likes of Crash, Mega, PC Gamer, and the official PlayStation magazine were your connection with the industry. I did Nintendo Power, but that was a very short magazine. I think it was only existed for maybe 10 years. It provided news, reviews, and interviews, as well as lively letters pages that fostered a sense of community. Very rarely, however, did anyone keep hold of their magazine collections. Lacking the cultural gravitas of music or movie publications, they were mostly thrown away. While working at Future Publishing as a games journalist in the 1990s, Keith Stewart. Keith watched many times as hundreds of old issues of Superplay, Edge, and Game Master were tipped in the skips for pulping. He feels queasy just thinking about it. I definitely try to keep my Nintendo Power magazines, but we definitely for a long time kept our National Geographic magazines. I loved reading them. Those were like almanacs of information. Because now, of course, thousands of other video game ventures have realized these magazines are a vital historical resource as well as a source of nostalgic joy. Surviving copies of classic magazines are selling at vast premium on our eBay, and while the Internet Archive does contain patchy collections of scanned magazines, it is vulnerable to legal challenges from copyright holders. Thankfully, there are institutions taking the preservation of games magazines seriously. Last week, the Video Game History Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to the preservation of games and their history, announced that from the 30th of January, it will be opening up its digital archive of out-of-print magazines to read and study online. So far, 1,500 issues of mostly American game mags are available, as well as art books and other printed ephemera, but the organization is busy scanning its entire collection. The digitized content will be fully tagged and searchable by word or phrase, so you'll be able to easily track down the first mentions of, say, Minecraft, John Romero, or the survival genre. In a recent video introducing the archive, VGHF librarian Phil Salvador explained, "We wanted to make something that was going to be useful and easy for anyone to study video game history. Whether you're an academic writing a book or a creator making a YouTube video, or you're just a curious person. Yeah, it's a library of game magazines." Founded by game historian Frank Cifaldi in 2017, the VGHF is part of the growing number of archives, academic institutions, and museums dedicated to preserving games history. While the focus is usually on tracking down and preserving the games themselves, there is a growing understanding that magazines provide vital context. Video game magazines are often representative of people's relationship to video games. They accompany the journey, says John O'Shea, creative director and co-founder of the National Video Game Museum in Sheffield, which is a growing collection of printed materials. They have a similar lineage to football and music, fantasy, and culture, and that they provide perspectives on the players and fans and what they were thinking at the time. They also provide insight into particular trends and narratives, what gets emphasized and what doesn't. They provide direct access to particular historical periods. Magazines then tell a social cultural story that the games themselves cannot. Looking at these magazines now through the lens of contemporary video game culture is not what is there, but what is not there, says O'Shea. The majority of characters featured in the magazine up to the early 2010s are men. I looked at the selection of PC magazines from 2011, and the same number of female protagonists were represented as they were panda protagonists. But you know, everything's woke these days. I'm putting women in my video games. That's the argument these days, by the way. A lot of angry gamers being like, stop making women in my video game, and they're all ugly too. They're not hot and sexy. Where's my, triangle boobs from, I can't even remember the name of the game. I can't remember the famous game where there's just huge knockers, but it's just because of low poly count, it's just triangles. Game mags are often written for very specific and very dedicated demographics and reflected the focus of the industry itself. Many adverts throughout the 90s and to the early 2000s featured skimpily dressed women, even when the games were military shooters or strategy sims. Yeah, it was like a half-naked woman holding a controller being like, you want to buy this game because I'm hot, and that's it. They're like, oh, great advertising. I don't know what the game's about, but hey, there's a naked woman on it, so... Talks about it as for premium rate video game. Tip lines were accompanied by photos of women in bikinis. It's there because there were the demographic they were aiming at. Teenage boys, says the museum's collection officer, Anne Wayne. The marketing shows who was getting the attention and why. The letters page also show us a lot about player culture. What topics were people discussing? What was the conversation around games? It contextualizes games in a way that playing them just can't. Both the VGHF and the National Video Game Museum are reliant on donations. The latter has just received an almost complete collection of PC Gamer from a collector who also kept all the cover demo discs and inserts. Wow! A bunch of old demo discs? That's crazy! Now that's a collector. It's important work because often the magazine publishers themselves have patchy records on preservation. Future Publishing does have archive at its Bath office, but it's not complete, and whole collections have been lost when other companies have shut down. In a post on LinkedIn last year, veteran game media publisher Stuart Dinsey recalled that when he sold Intent Media in 2013, the new owner pulped almost the entire back catalog of its industry publications, CTW and MTV. This is trash. Put it in the trash can. Looking back on video game history, it's easy to imagine a smooth narrative flow, a sense of inevitability about which games or technologies would be successful and which would fail, but it wasn't usually like that. Contemporary reporting reveals a mass complication of uncertainties. Video game magazines provide a lot of resistance to that very linear idea of history, says O'Shea. Especially the technological deterministic view that more powerful tech would inevitably be more interesting and successful. No, it's been mostly boring. The games I have the most fun with are not the ones with the best graphics, I'll tell you that much. It's the ones with creativity and art and story. They do something different. When going to the VGHF's digital archive next month, look at the contemporary news around Sega's Mega Drive, the original PlayStation, or the Nintendo Wii. There was no agreement at the time over their impending success. Game mags were on the front line of game history. In this uncertain era for the industry, their voices, dimmed and distant through the scene, are more important than ever. So that's your positive culture news about saving these magazines. I actually follow somebody on Mastodon who just randomly posts magazine ads and stuff like that. Oh, today in 1986, this magazine talked about a new D&D book releasing, and that kind of stuff. It's really cool to look back on history and see what other people were talking about and what they were thinking and saying, you know what, we do think the same. Or, wow, they sure were wrong about that. Oh, here we go. I found it right now. Game magazine print ads on Mastodon. And it's like a bunch of different Nintendo Fever, buy these games from Nintendo. And it was this really cool, just really old scan of just, oh yeah, that's really, like, what, I don't even know what, it didn't tell, 1989, yeah, this is from 1989, right? These are the games that people were looking at in 1989, a lot of Batman games, interestingly enough, but very cool, very amazing to archive history of all art. Yes, even video game is art in its own way. It's an expression of the human mind, and onto this day in history, I guess.
Well, it's really not often technology changes that fast.
No.
Like
1990. It's not just about technology, though. It's about the human being, right? And how we think is really not changed that much over the years.
Right. Well, I'm saying it's a rapid change. It was a rapid change. We went from a totally, like 1990, we weren't all on the internet all the time. Now we're always on the internet, like always. Even when we don't think we're on the internet, we're on it. Anyway, it's just the rapidly changing technology of video games is part of it. Anyway, back to this day in history. In year 814. You remember that year, 814? That was a rough one. Anyway, Charlemagne, ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, died at Aachen in Germany. So, rest in peace, Charlemagne, you crazy guy. And 1457, King Henry VII of England was born in Pembrokeshire, Wales. Wow. And he was succeeded in ending the War of the Roses. I don't remember which one of the Roses won, but it was a big war. I think Pete Rose won that one. Just a joke. Anyway, 1813, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice was published anonymously and enjoyed immediate success, thanks in part to the popularity of the central character Elizabeth Bennet, who was reportedly Austen's own favorite among all her heroines. She published it anonymously. I wonder because women weren't thought of as authors back then, probably.
Nobody
I
will
don't
believe
know.
it's me. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do it anonymous.
Right.
Let the writing speak for
well,
itself.
Anyway, it was immediate success. I'll bet you those checks weren't anonymous. In 1871, the French capital Paris fell following a 4-month siege during the Franco-German War, one of the few European wars during the 19th century. There weren't a lot of wars after the French Revolution. After Napoleon, the 19th century was largely peaceful in Europe. 1873, French writer Colette, whose best novels, largely concerned with pains and pleasures of love, are remarkable for their command of sensual description, was born in Saint-Sauveur in the Pays. All right there, Colette. Can't pronounce the city you were born in, but thanks for writing all them juicy novels. 1881, Russian novelist, another novelist was born. Oh, actually died, sorry. Fyodor Dostoevsky died in St. Petersburg. What did Dostoevsky write? He wrote, what did he write? You tell me.
I don't know either. I have terrible titles, please.
Dostoevsky.
War? Catch-22? I don't know. That really long book, War and Peace? Is that him? I don't know.
What did he write?
It's not War and Peace.
He didn't write War and Peace. It was Leon. He wrote notable works are Raw Youth, Crime and Punishment. That's what he wrote.
That was, War and Peace, Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment.
I fried a brain cell trying to recall. One of those books
War and Peace,
the end in the middle, you know, same thing.
Well, Crime and Punishment, and one leads to the other.
Yeah.
In 1912, American painter Jackson Pollock was born. Jackson Pollock, a leading exponent of abstract expressionism, who received widespread publicity and serious recognition for his radical poured or drip technique he used to create his major works. So happy birthday to Jackson Pollock. I guess expressionism, laying your canvas on the floor and throwing paint on it.
This is how I feel. I'm feeling red today. I mean, sometimes it does work that way. I'm feeling red today. I don't know what that means, but that's how I feel.
I guess. How can you tell his bad work from his good work is always my question. I'm like, okay, I get it. It is expressionism, but where does it stop being stop being expressionism and begin being just a guy spilling paint? Because it's like saying, oh, I love that Jackson Pollock work. Oh, but I hate that one. I don't even know where to start. In 1915, Congress created the U.S. Coast Guard by combining the Revenue Cutter Service and the U.S. Life-Saving Service. So the Coast Guard's birthday today, 1915. 1955, jumping way ahead, French politician Nicolas Sarkozy was born in Paris. Happy birthday. He's still around. He was the president of France from 07 to 12. In 1958, Godfred Kirk Christensen, whose father founded the company Lego in Denmark, filed for a Danish patent for a toy building block that became hugely popular around the world. Happy birthday to Lego.
Lego blocks. Let's build stuff out of Legos.
Oh, yeah. There's giant buildings made of Legos now. 2002, Swedish children's author Astrid Lindgren died at the age of 94. She was best known for her works involving Pippi Longstocking, a freckle-faced, red-haired 9-year-old who incarnates every childhood dream of freedom and power. Pippi Longstocking, known for having long stockings. In 2021, actress Cicely Tyson passed away at the age of 96, was noted for her vivid portrayals of strong African-American women. Remember her from the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, who is this lady that was born into slavery. 1986, our featured event is the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger. I remember this day. I was in boot camp. On this day in 1986, the U.S. Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after liftoff from Florida, killing all 7 on board, including school teacher, who had been chosen as the first American civilian to travel in space. Now, the reason the space shuttle blew up, you can blame Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was in a hurry. This is an actual fact. Ronald Reagan wanted to have these astronauts back to Earth for his State of the Union speech. So they were in a big old hurry to get this thing into space so they can get all these, especially the first school teacher into space, back to Earth so they can use her as a prop in a speech. So they lifted off in the space shuttle, and one of the coldest mornings in the history of Cape Canaveral, and the space shuttle seals were frozen, and once something starts leaking, it continues to leak. So since the seals weren't working, it exploded, and you can blame Ronald Reagan for their death, or at least the people that were pushing this idiotic
venture.
We gotta have her back here for the State of the Union speech.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Our featured biography, Mikhail Baryshnikov, who was born on this day on January 27th, which was yesterday for some reason. I don't know why they're putting it up here today. He was born yesterday in 1948.
It is.
He's turning 77. At least they got his age right. They got his age right. They got the day wrong, but they got his age right. Other birthdays today, Jackson Pollock, we mentioned. Alan Alda, who played Hawkeye Pierce in MASH. Alan Alda, American actor and director, screenwriter, born in 1936. Alan Alda turning 89 today. Carlos Slim Helu, Mexican businessman, born in 1940. Greg Popovich, American basketball coach, born in 1949, coach of the San Antonio Spurs for seems like forever. And we did Nicolas Sarkozy. What day is it today? It is National Gift of the Ladybug Day. Now, we're going to have to click on this one because I don't know what the heck that means. It's National Data Privacy Day. And it's National Plan Your Vacation Day. So, it's cold outside if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. It's cold outside. It's really disgustingly bad weather outside. I can't do nothing, but I can plan my vacation. And it's National Blueberry Pancake Day and National Kazoo Day. If you don't know what kazoo is a thing that you blow in your mouth and it goes like that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the most annoying musical instrument in the world. And Gift of the Ladybug, National Gift of the Ladybug Day, January 28th, honors all children with critical illnesses. Oh, shit. This day is also an opportunity to raise awareness of childhood illnesses and support children and the families facing medical difficulties. It sucks to be a child and you're sick all the time. Childhood should be enjoyed.
Yep.
Here should be the years where you're just carefree, and here you are fighting an illness. So, Observe the Gift of the Ladybug is a book by Carol Mack. Follows the story of a family of horses who discovered their child is a ladybug and will not live very long. The ladybug reassures the horse by saying, I am a ladybug. I don't know how to be a horse. I don't know how to be a ladybug. I only know how to be a ladybug. Every day, hundreds of families receive a diagnosis that puts their child's life in danger. The ladybug serves a perfect symbol for a child faced with critical illness. Her life may be short, but she's perfect just the way she is. The beautiful ladybug captures our imagination and gives us a reason to celebrate. Right on. And of course, ladybug's good for nature, as they say. So those are your days. That's everything for today on Good Tuesday News Day on January 28th, 2025 on Before Blueberry Pancakes.
Hey. Okay, well, we also have some international UN days, which I have missed because there were none for 2 weeks. Actually, 2 weeks and a half. So let me go ahead and cover these 3 days we missed. On the 24th, so that was last Friday, there was International Day of Education. So under the theme of AI and education, preserving human agency in a world of automation, The 2025 International Day of Education encourages reflections on the power of education to equip individuals and communities to navigate and understand and influence the technological advancement of the human race. Now, that also means learning what AI is and identifying it and being able to think critically for yourself instead of just, hey, I've been seeing a lot. I don't know how prevalent it is, but I've been seeing a lot of messages of people who are so lazy or they can't write well or whatever reason excuse they use ChatGPT to send a message to their loved ones, for example. ChatGPT, write me a loving message for my girlfriend's birthday. Just think of one yourself. Why are you asking ChatGPT to write it for you? Well, I wasn't confident it would be good. It doesn't matter if it's good. It's about coming from you, not from the fucking computer. Yeah. So,
the AI narrators are great. The way the AI narrators mispronounce words, I think it's freaking awesome.
It's hilarious.
It's an easy way to spot them, by the way. They mispronounce easy words. Yeah.
Like, why did you say A that way there? On Sunday, it was International Day of Clean Energy, which we were actually celebrating, I think, about the EU reaching its beating coal in making the most energy on the planet through clean energy. But that's what you need to celebrate or should have celebrated on Sunday. Clean energy for all and for the planet to save the environment. And then yesterday
very important.
Was International Day of Commemoration in the Memory of the Victims of the Holocaust, which of course was because it was the anniversary of... Yeah. I forgot yesterday. I forgot to check this every day. I haven't been checking this every day because there wasn't any days for like 2 weeks. So I forgot about it. My brain forgot about it. But I'll try to remember to check it every day. Today there is no day. And for another week, there's no days.
I don't think it.
But there will be an international week next in 2 weeks, I guess. So celebrate that stuff. Keep it in mind.
I'm mispronouncing things. I saw this guy the other day. He came off like an expert on Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, and he was going on and on. But then he kept calling Pete Seeger. And I'm like, oh, you sound like an expert until you mispronounce somebody's name that everybody knows. Anyway.
Sometimes it just comes out of your mouth wrong. That's what happens to me. I have a speech impediment, so
He just kept saying it wrong. He just kept saying it wrong, like he never learned the guy's name. Right? Like, how are you an expert on anything?
Okay.
Sorry,
but anyway, this has been Allison here from the Netherlands, Roger from the west coast of the U.S. As we finish off a good Tuesday. I hope there was enough positive news for you. Let us know down in the comments below if you have any positive news you'd like to share with the class. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Turn on those notifications so you know when we go live for tomorrow's episode of Wacky and Weird Wednesday. We're going to cover all the weird and wacky things animals and people are doing out there in the news cycle. Take care out there. Have a good one. And here is our short and sweet mic drop moment.
Bitterly cold conditions at Niagara Falls have seen the river freeze.
Crazy weather going on.
A stunning winter landscape. Temperatures at the waterfall have dropped to -8 degrees, causing the icy stillness below. The cascading water is too powerful to completely freeze over.
But it starts icicling,
in 2015, a climber was able to scale parts of the falls that had become a sheet of ice in a daring and freezing feat.
Well, that's 10 years ago, this guy.
That's insane.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.